All right, guys. So just come on into the space and arrive in. It's always a reminder, an opportunity to notice that you can be somewhere else. So how do you arrive in the space? Just notice that for yourself. Everybody's got their own techniques. You might notice an object in the room, sensation on your body. Maybe you notice an inhale in your nose and then out your mouth. And we're going to take a soup breath. And that's a breath where you're savoring the air, right? Like you just walked in the house and you notice something smells amazing. And your body knows how to automatically open to receive the breath. And so what happens is that this is the breath, one of the reasons why this is the most important breath. And so while I'm talking to you, I just invite you to keep taking those breaths. Every once in a while, just inhale in your nose and savor the air. Is that one of the reasons why this is the most important breath you can really learn and practice is because you can do this all of the time. And that this breath opens you to savor the moment. And when you savor, it brings the body into a state of tend and mend or rest and digest. And what this is called is the parasympathetic nervous system. And so the parasympathetic nervous system down regulates the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight response. And so when we come into the parasympathetic state, and so just feel what the parasympathetic state is right now. Just inhale in your nose and then out your mouth. And what do you notice in your body? You release tension. Right? You might want to sigh. You might actually feel tension on and in your body release. And then the qualities of this are relaxation, resting, recovery. And then we're into a state of being ready to respond to our life. And this is the state just before we engage or focus or direct our attention. And when we drop into this, we automatically stumble on self-energy. Because what's happening is when we get, and notice how I have to keep doing it, right? Because we come out of this state, our protective state comes back on its own. So we have to inhale in our nose and then drop back in. And this is so easy. You can do it when you get into your car, when you sit down to drink a cup of tea or coffee, when you walk out the door, you step onto the sidewalk. Just take one soup breath and drop it into your body. And so the 9 C's of self-energy, the 9 C's of self-energy. When you're in the self state, you automatically start to feel clarity, or feel clear and calm. And then you generate a sense of confidence, internal sense of confidence. You feel more connected, more creative, more compassionate, able to connect with the world around you. And this allows you to be curious and courageous. And so these are the 8 C's of self. And then there's 5 P's, a state of presence. You gain a sense of perspective. You gain a sense of patience, playfulness, and finally persistence. And all of these qualities allow you to show up in your life in a more empowering and open-hearted way. And so right now, I just want you to come back to that breath and take one soup breath and embody this. And it all starts by savoring. And as I do it, I notice tension on the top of my chest and around my ears and my jaw. And we were just talking about operations. We're talking about the operations of the Unshakable Man. And go ahead and come on in back into the space, guys. And I just want you to know that I want to share with you guys what's going on in my inner experience, that every time I took that soup breath, I noticed tension from that conversation, like releasing, right? And I just want to, I bring that in because that's what automatically happens, right? It's our non-conscious autonomic response to engaging with our life, right? And that's why that soup breath is so powerful. And it's also in that soup breath is the first breath that we teach in the fundamentals course to come into the body, right? And we teach what interoception is, and then we teach what sequencing is on and in the body, tracking, and that emotions are physical sensations in the body. And we call it the soup breath portal, right? Because we're learning to use the breath and then to give naming conventions to all of these things. I'm going to turn the recording off. And does anybody have any questions about that before I do that? Or did you want to say anything about what we just talked about? Totally fine. What was that like for you guys?
I noticed that as we slowed down, I felt tension in my jaw, and I felt some tension in my mid back. And as I continued to breathe, like I felt tears come to my eyes and a release of sadness. And that's something that's been there, that's needed, that I've needed to let go of, and I just couldn't do it on my own. So being walked into to slow down and to feel it, it was like the tip of the iceberg, just kind of getting that ball rolling. So
Chris, I want to share that I feel deeply connected to when I do this breath. I often feel a subtle sense of sadness come up, and there's something very special from a somatic perspective about the sense of sadness. And this is in the language of emotions from Carla McLaren. She outlines that sadness, right, actually invites flexibility. It is the emotion that is uniquely qualified to allow us to feel elastic, right? To engage with our life. And it's not bad, right? It's showing that we're stepping into that sense of sensitivity, right? And tenderness. And that invites the ability to respond back to what we were saying about the parasympathetic nervous system, right? The PNS system, is that when we get in there, that's what allows us to get these creative ideas, right? But then when we get into our head, we come up into the sympathetic fight or flight, right? Fear and insecurity starts coming. And when I feel that, like I wake up in the morning often and I'm going in to begin to create my creative work or to do something, or think about something I haven't done before. And I notice when I'm driving home from a swim in the ocean, or when I get up from my meditation cushion, that sense of sadness is there. And I smile at it. I smile at it. Like I'm like, oh, I can feel this way. Good. That's a good sign.
Yeah, I have a feeling of some like nostalgic a little bit was when I was doing it, and also feels like an amazing way to be present.
Mhm. To be present, to
Mm.
savor, to take that one breath, right?
Hmm.
I notice I keep doing it with you guys, right? Like while we're talking about these things, and every time I do it, my belly wants to roll forward, my hips want to come into alignment, and my ears want to come over my shoulders. Because when I lose engagement, when I go to, it like my body wants to be in this posture, stacked, dignified. It doesn't work when I'm like this. That's when I'm. Okay, would anyone else like to share, say anything before we turn off the recording? It's really special, I think, to hear your guys' perspectives and have it recorded. So
For me, when I notice uh this whole week, because I was blessed this week. I got to go to Chris's group on Tuesday. I got to go to Steven's group last night, and now I got this group tonight. So
wow,
so three check-ins, and Chris is right there with me.
wow, Chris, that's right.
So three check-ins, and what I notice is I notice the day. I notice the release from the day
Mm,
when I go into the check-in, and I notice when I take that soup breath, it almost invariably ends in a yawn.
mhm,
And I've come to realize that those yawns are
mhm.
the releasing
Yes,
of all of the energy from that's been built up throughout the day.
absolutely.
And so it's just that sense of relaxation. And I was listening to you as you were talking about that, and I'm thinking, why am I not doing that more throughout the day?
Mm,
Instead of letting it all, letting everything build up throughout the day, and then, at the end
mhm.
of the day, then release it. Why not start releasing it throughout the day? Like
Yeah,
you said, get in the car,
right.
take a
Well,
couple soup
that's
breaths and release.
and that's the breath portal habit that we did in cohort 1, was learning to create that as a habit, right? And the key is to do that, to just answer that instead of why not, how can I? Like, how can I
Yeah.
start doing this instead of the, let's use how can I? So how can I? We'll make this into a teachable moment. Well, what we want is we want to find the end of automatic behaviors. Okay, so the key is to find the end of things you already automatically do, which is called an anchor. Okay, now it already automatically happens, so you don't have to try to have it happen. And so some good examples of anchors are when I flush the toilet, right? That's the end of using the bathroom. You flush the toilet. Or maybe if you're a good guy, you wash your hands. I don't always wash my hands. I'm sorry, guys. So I can't believe I just acknowledged that. So I'm going to start washing my hands now. So we, at the end of the last activity is when you wash your hands, right? Or when the car door shut, or when I start the car, or when I tie my shoes, when I lay my head on the pillow, right? These are all in the morning when I press the hot water heater on. Those are what's called an anchor. So after I do that, the recipe is after I turn on the hot water heater, I will, and then it's take a single soup breath.
Oh, okay.
And you take it, and then right after you're done, you celebrate. And the reason why you celebrate is because in the body, when we celebrate, a tiny spurt of dopamine goes off in the brain, and the brain gets better at reinforcing when that dopamine hits, right? And if you forget to do it and you remember later that you forgot to do it, you celebrate when you remember, because that's what's called a habit ripple, which is the formation of the habit is forming in your brain. And so when you remember that you didn't do it, you celebrate right away and it'll make it stronger. And so that's your breath portal habit. Right. And so for me, my strongest anchor is when my feet touch the floor in the morning. So when I get out of bed, the end of getting out of bed is when my feet touch the floor. Every morning I go, and then I usually look around and just do my stupid celebration. I laugh at how stupid that thing is, and then go about my day. So, but I find that it roots much easier now because of that. Okay. Shall we close the recording? All right.